Today we are going to see, what if Naruto has eyes on the elusive Minerva Mink? So let's get started. The populace of Moongrove Forest were going about their usual routine. This society resided deep within the confines of a society of intelligent anthropomorphic beings. There were those among these beings that were the byproduct of a race of toons that came to life from illustrations and animation in human society. Like any conflict born from differences, the two species of toons had their tenations. The same barrier of tension that plagues the races are those of different religion. Except this was more profound. The difference of being a different species altogether was far more difficult to withstand than different beliefs. As such, there were those who stood strong by their prejudice, preventing tensions between the human populace and the human-like animals from declining. Among the forest was an assortment of the various types of species. Wolves that were cunning, fierce and territorial. There were also the laid-back frogs that enjoyed the cool and murky depths of the ponds, and the birds who were the master of the skies. Though there were an assortment of creatures that were inextinguishable from humans. One of those creatures were the forest foxes, who migrated to the forest quite recently. While the foxes weren't as big as predators as panthers or snakes, they were still quite feared among the inhabitants. After all, some species had to eat other animals to survive. Though the inhabitants of Moongrove Forest were more lively than usual, mating season would be occurring soon, and as a result everyone was in a tizzy to find a partner. One such creature was Naruto of the Fox clan. He was an anomaly, being loud instead of quiet like most kitsune. He was also rather confrontational and athletic for his species, though that probably was a result of him not being all-around cunning in nearly all matters of life like most of his species. He was a tall creature with flame-orange fur covering his back, arms, legs, and a portion of his head, white fur from his belly up to his mouth and cheeks. He also had a black, narrow snout, long, pointy black ears, forearms, and calves, and he had bright blue eyes. His tail was covered with orange fur ending with a portion that had black fur with a small white tip. He was on the eve of adulthood and he had one goal. Naruto Uzumaki of the Kyuubi clan liked proving himself the best. What other way than to do the impossible and conquer the unconquerable? He was going to prove to Sasuke and the other guys that he could nab the most beautiful creature in the forest, Minerva Mink. Minerva Mink was an anthropomorphic min whose body was covered from head to toe with snow-white fur with black sparkling eyes and the most beautiful shade of golden blonde mane and tail. Rumors and praises of goddess-like beauty showered or spread about the mink. Naruto had seen her a few times himself and he agreed that some of the rumors were indeed accurate, but the reactions of most of his fellow males were quite exaggerated. Though what attracted Naruto to Minerva wasn't her beauty, but her playfulness and cunning. How she always managed to outsmart whoever was after her, even pranking and tricking many great hunters had resulted in Naruto becoming quite smitten with her. The way she outwitted hunters left and right was like poetry in motion. Speaking of which, the fox's thoughts were interrupted by a howl and flying body go soaring overhead. It was most likely that hunting dog Newt. Some animals just didn't know when to give up. Naruto came to a stop as he spotted his destination on the other side of the house. It was a massive log home, similar to Slappy Squirrel's house. Naruto I led along the water to take notice of the door. He was jarred out of his thoughts by the sound of singing. It's not pretty being me. Do, da, la, di. It's not pretty being me. Do, da, la, di. He got closer and noticed she was a rock, writing something. Indeed she was, as he last remembered her. Though she is wearing that little red dress of hers. No, she was wearing a shoulderless light blue top and violet skirt. Dear Diary, another lonely day is coming to a close and I have as of yet found that special someone. She spoke as she wrote down the entry, stopping to undo her hair wrap and left her fluffy long hair to flutter a bit. It seems so very unfair that I don't have someone to share life's tender moments, someone warm and kind. A tear dripped down her right eye, tugging at Naruto's heartstrings. The minx promptly wiped it away with one of her dainty fingers. With very rich parents. Naruto rose and I in disbelief. So much for the pure of heart rumor. Looks like even Minerva herself had serious flaws. Which was going to make this not only easier, but showed him that perfection didn't exist after all. With a sigh she finished her entry. Oh well, tomorrow's another day. Minerva Mink. Naruto shook his head, trying to calm his beating heart. He unintentionally let out a loud exhale, gaining her attention. Minerva got off the rock, walked towards the lake and peered around. Hello, is anyone there? She spoke in a soft voice. Sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you, Naruto called out as he walked out into view. Single quote. I'm Naruto Uzumaki of the Kitsune or Foxes in the common tongue, he introduced himself. He watched as she shifted slightly, automatically preparing for any attempts to harm her person. Hello, I do. Think I've seen you around here before. Are you lost? From what Minerva knew, the Kitsune kept to themselves. They also didn't get along too well with canines who spent a great deal of time in the forest. No, I actually came to speak with you. An unsatisfied frown formed on her face. The look of her eyes gave away that she had an idea on why the blonde was here. I'm sure you're a nice guy, not interested in looking for a mate. Sorry you had to waste your time coming down here, but I'm simply not interested. It was like this every mating season. Even creatures who were in a different class of species hampered her come this time. Wait, hold on, he appeared next to her side in almost an instant. The way Minerva recoiled, he noticed he startled her. I'm not like the others. I've heard that all of the time. She responded with disinterest. Well, I want to show you that I'm not. That I'm not just trying to bed you, he added. Really, you got my attention, Minerva remarked, sensually making her way to Naruto with a swing of her hips. Her ample chest dangerously brushed against him as she gave him an intense, sultry look. Naruto felt himself getting a bit lightheaded and gulped. He was not going to be like the rest of those horny perverts. You're right in assuming I have an interest in you, but I want to get to know you. So I propose you give me 3 months to win your interest. The fact that was when mating season began didn't escape Minerva's interest. And how do you plan on doing that? Because I'm sure you wouldn't mind a mating who's cunning, strong, romantic. And how do you intend on doing that? To prove my cunning, I'll do what everyone else has failed to do and capture you. I'll prove my strength by defeating the strongest creature in this province. And once a week I like to take you out and woo you. Not in any particular order, of course. Minerva had to stifle an unladylike snort at that. No one, not even the proclaimed top his class newt could catch her. The fact that he told her he planned on capturing her wasn't very cunning of the Kitsune either. 2. Did he really plan on challenging that old turtle student? He had to be insane, and the most laughable was the fact he thought he could woo her. Her, Minerva Mink. Although the fox wasn't that bad looking, but he wasn't no hunk. He could have been a lot worse looking, and if he wanted to pay to take her out, who was she to complain? I have a few conditions. When you take me out, no cheap burger joints of anything. I'm a lady and I expect to be treated as such. Okay, Naruto nodded. Second of all, I get to choose what days we go out, because after all I'm a busy lady, she mentally added. Not exactly a lie. Last thing I need is for hunters to ruin the outing. Alright, anything else? He asked. Nothing that comes to mind. Now if you excuse me, I have to go take a shower. So I'll meet you after tomorrow at say 7? She asked as Naruto nodded. She used her tail to brush along Naruto's chin, causing him to flush red all over and nearly stumble backwards as he was on his way to prepare for the first of the 12 dates. She repressed the urge to giggle, seeing she still had an effect on the fox. For a moment she was beginning to think she lost her touch. At the very least this'll shake things up a bit, she thought. Having grown bored at how monotonous things had become. A restaurant, not the most creative of dates, but it was a safe and often enjoyable setting. A good meal could often set the tone of the date and tell you a lot about the person. The two of them were seated at a moderately popular restaurant to which Naruto made reservations for. He was thankful he decided to prepare 6 months ahead of time. By taking odd jobs and taking a part-time job. Something told him that whatever his next big project was, it was going to be expensive. They were hardly seated before their waiter appeared, blandly good-looking and perfectly coiffed. He presented them with a platter of artfully arrayed cheeses and pâtés, explaining with a smooth smile that it was on the house. Naruto couldn't help but feel annoyed. With the waiter's gaze lingered on Minerva too long for his liking. Clearly his throat, he managed to get the waiter's attention, who didn't even have the decency to look sheepish. The man soon returned, Ed with 2 glasses of water and a bottle of yellowish liquor. Naruto and Minerva exchanged a blank look. To accompany the appetizer. It's meant to stimulate the appetite, he explained. All right then, Naruto allowed. And Minerva shook her head. He poured each of them a small amount anyway and left a large pitcher of water in the middle of the table. To dilute the pastis, a 5-to-1 ratio is generally preferred. Please take your time looking over the menus, and let me know if you need anything at all. Bemused, Minerva sniffed at the drink and wrinkled her nose. She set the glass back WN on the table and began fiddling with her flatware, contemplating the situation. She couldn't remember the last time she was on a genuine date. It didn't help that she was already drawing attention. But at least Naruto didn't lose his temper and started a fight with a waiter. That happened all too often. She didn't know why she was bothered. It wasn't like it was something unusual, but for once, she would have liked to be able to let her guard down and relax. During this, she unintentionally slammed down the knife she handling on the table immediately, folding her hands in her lap. Naruto snapped his attention to Minerva, eyes widening. Minerva, it was nothing, she said quickly. She didn't want Naruto to think she wasn't up for this. She decided after spending most of the afternoon thinking about it, to give the blonde a fair chance. How often will she get a chance to have a nice night out with a nice guy? She grabbed her water glass and took a huge gulp, trying to force herself back into focus. Thankfully the waiter had returned. "I'll take an Asian rice salad," Minerva began her order. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. The woman ordering the salad routine is highlighted by, well, media in general. Naruto was in no means sexist, but he wasn't daft or blind when it came to a lot of differences between the sexes and the culture around many gender issues and behavior. He was a kitsune after all. His species were one of the ones whom were heavily educated in matters of the romance and sex. They were also the ones most accepting of outside romances, even that of the human persuasion despite the secluded nature of his kind. True, the kitsune had an air of mystery around them, but it was more for protection than of elitism. "I'll also have the salmon, the clams, and the roast duck." At that moment Naruto realized two things. Minerva was by no means a picky or small eater, then again her rather healthy figure should have tipped him off. Secondly, he was going to need a bigger wallet, and a Diet Coke. Her attention turned to him, indicating that she saw the look of disbelief that was plastered on his face. "I have to retain my figure after all. I'll have the Parmesan chicken with a baked potato, corn and Sprite." Naruto wasn't all that big on alcohol, preferring to drink for special occasions. "So, I wasn't aware that Diet Coke had magical slimming properties." He couldn't keep the smirk off his face. "I'm sorry, what?" Minerva prompted him, wondering what the kitsune was talking about. She couldn't help but be taken in by his smirk. She was all too used to smirks and the arrogance behind them, but this one was playful. It was light, mischievous, reminding her of, well, whenever she'd put one over one of Hunter's. No, in fact it was probably more benign than that. "I wasn't aware Diet Coke the solution to prevent weight gain is all." "Are you making fun of my choice in beverages?" "You have to admit, it is a bit funny. Though I am happy you're not a herbivore-only girl. I have nothing against them, but it would not only bring unnecessary strife in the relationship. I'm not into that sickly, skeleton-looking ideal of beauty a lot of people seem to go with." After a long pause of silence, leaving Naruto wondering if he had blown his chances already, Minerva finally stated something. "It's refreshing," she finally said, seeing the bamboozled look on Naruto's face. "You have something of a personality. Like for instance, you were able to let me know what you wanted without being over the top and I'm actually able to have a conversation with you. You have no idea how refreshing that is. Well, I'm glad I could provide for a change of pace. So I'm curious, how do you make a living?" "I'm taking classes part-time while earning money so I can earn money to pursue a career in cooking." Quote, "Well, I'm an actress. Have you ever heard of a show called Animaniacs?" The two of them traded small talk, enjoying themselves and just having a nice experience. Minerva smiled to herself as they continued to talk. The food was delicious and the atmosphere was quite nice. All in all, she could get used to this. "Hey," Naruto questioned, "everything okay?" Minerva was interrupted from her thoughts. "Oh yeah, it's good. I was just thinking about something. Do you want to?" He began asking her what she would like for dessert when a voice interrupted him. "Uzumaki," a voice suddenly called from behind Minerva. She glanced behind to find several young men and women. The one with unruly flame-orange hair stepped forward and was regarding Naruto with a sneer. Naruto merely returned his gaze evenly. "What's a goofy bastard like you with a beauty like this?" "That's right," another boy with slick blonde hair and slanted eyes piped in. "Keeping to yourself so the rest of us won't have a chance at her, huh? What a waste of a cutie." He regarded Minerva with a malicious leer that made Minerva angry. She was about to stand up to tell him off, when Minerva stood up first and placed a placating hand on her shoulder. "That's right, she's with me." Naruto's voice had a dangerous edge to me. "If you guys have a problem with it, find me later, B." Would I ask that you present yourself with enough class not to act so crash in front of a lady. The boy with the flame hair almost stepped forward, but something in Naruto's stolid gaze warned him to stay away. There were those of his species who looked down on Naruto for being an ignorant and loudmouth braggart. I'm sorry about that, Naruto hastily said to Minerva. He'd reseated himself and smiled reassuringly at the waiters. The observers had begun to disperse and find other areas of interest. As you'd probably guessed, those were members of my species who aren't too fond of me. His cheeks darkened. About what I said earlier. I didn't mean to be so presumptuous as to what I said, he began rambling when he was cut off by Minerva's giggling. That was so sweet of you. I guess you can say that I've always fancied a knight in shining armor. Naruto's blush deepened. At desert, the two of them took a stroll around the forest near Minerva's home. It's such a lovely evening, Minerva stated happily. Her good mood having reasserted itself with a slice or three of cheesecake. Indeed, he agreed as they were bathed by the light of the moon. Minerva really looked lovely in her pale violet dress. After the unfortunate interruption from Naruto's species, the evening had gone along well enough. Naruto couldn't believe how well things were going. He learned things about Minerva that really added dimensions to her characters. She liked older movies like Some Like It Hot, which featured Marilyn Monroe in the apartment. Though unfortunately all good things came to an end as they came to a stop at her home. I have to say, this evening turned out better than I expected. Minerva took in his scent, she could smell roses and other flowers. Though that made sense, seeing as one of his hobbies was gardening. I'll be free 3 days from now. Hopefully we won't have any interruptions next time. Indeed, I have just the thing in mind, he replied with a grin. Good night, handsome. Minerva bid farewell as she moved up and placed a kiss on Naruto's cheek. The blonde's cheeks burned red as Minerva's tail playfully brushed across his nose. Good night, he dreamily remarked as he walked away, almost stumbling over the log on the path. Minerva smiled as she entered her home. These next 3 months were going to be eventful. Minerva Mink knew a lot of things about herself. She was vain and shallow, not to mention a bit of a gold digger. Minerva was beautiful, so didn't she have the right to be a little vain? She didn't have any deep interest in anything or anyone, so she called it as she saw it. That being said, why she could be identified as shallow. For one thing, she knew she didn't want to be poor. So she scouted for a man with a fat wallet. Minerva was raised to rely on her looks and a man with money. So a beautiful mink, with no responsibility, often spent her night partying in the hottest tune clubs. Tonight would be an exception. To her amusement or total boredom, she agreed to go on a date with a confident fox that didn't melt into a puddle of ooze at the mere sight of her. It would be refreshing for one, provided it didn't turn out like her last relationship. Wilford B. Wolf. For one night out of the month he would turn into the dreamiest hunk the mink had ever laid eyes on. He was nice. That was the simple way to put the nerdy wolf. He was also intelligent and took her out on dates that should have been incredibly romantic under the enchanting glow of the full moon, but one thing held her back. He was simply boring. Besides their attraction to each other, they had nothing in common. Minerva Mink didn't use math beyond buying the usual commodities or purchases of everyday life. She was not an astronomer, she didn't care to know any species of bugs or was a history buff. He simply did not excite her at all. Minerva enjoyed activities like going to the beach. Her hobby also included traveling the world and enjoying many exotic spices and herbs. Which unfortunately, thanks to Wilford's allergies, prevented them from trying many exotic foods or traveling places. As difficult as it was, Minerva knew she had to break it off at one point. Continuing to string him along when she was unhappy would have ended in misery for the both of them. The mink's love life was anything but glam. You would think someone as beautiful as her could land any man she wanted. That was if she could find him among all her pursuers and would-be suitors. Memories coursed through her mind as she remembered her would-be relationships. Those who would use their own good looks to take advantage of her. Only to scam her of everything she had. Then there were the guys she chose in her younger years. Like most young and dumb teenage girls, she went with a cute bad boy who she thought she could change, who abused and threatened her until she finally gathered up enough sense to leave him. She thought about it afterward. Most men, when not going berserk over her, objectified her, dismissed her, exploited her, or even tried to do her bodily harm. Though for the life of her she couldn't pin down any of these tales on Naruto. After spending some time thinking about she decided she would test the blonde and see if he was genuine in his intent on courting her. While their first day had indeed been rather joyful, it wouldn't be the first a guy she dated changed after spending some time together. Naruto meanwhile had finished his lunch for the evening and going over his plans. Just as he finished throwing his pack together, he got a call. Hello, Naruto Uzumaki residence, how may I assist you today? Good morning, Naruto. Oh, hi Obaa-san. Naruto greeted, a grin forming on his face. He could practically feel her heated glare from the other end. This is surprise. How are things? Everything is fine, though, I've been hearing an interesting rumor these past few days. Naruto sighed. I knew Kiba couldn't keep his mouth shut. Naruto grumbled. Way to go my boy. Jiraiya's voice echoed from the background, followed by a sharp crack and an outcry. You've made some boneheaded decisions in the past, but this takes the cake. Of all the girls you could have picked, you pick the one that'll scam you out of house and home before you can even blink. She's not that bad Obaa-san. Naruto argued, jumping to Minerva's defense. She's just going through some tough times. Even he was completely convinced of his own statement. She's a former actress who flitters from job to job. There are plenty of nice girls from the old colony that you could be dating. Like, what was the name of that girl? 1010, she seems nice. You only like her because she practically worships the ground you walk on. Naruto grumbled. What was that? Tsunade's sharp too. Nay echoed from the phone, causing Naruto to nearly drop it. I said I just like her as a friend. He quickly interjected with a nervous chuckle. Besides, all my old childhood friends are just that, friends. She continued with her insistent motherly interrogation. We'll talk more about your choices in dating later. To which Naruto had to repress a groan. How has your career choice been going? It's been going wonderful. There's been talk of the sous chef de cuisine, the under chef of the kitchen position, being able at the restaurant, and I'm one of the chefs they're considering. That's wonderful news, Naruto. You know, your godfather and I have the greatest confidence in you. Thanks, Oba-san. Naruto, can you come by the house 2 months from now for dinner? Your mother is coming home from an assignment and I thought it'd be nice if we all gathered together. Mom, Naruto thought as silence permeated the conversation for a few seconds. Yeah, I'll be by then. Good. You should also drop by a week from now. If you insist on seeing this mink, I want to make sure you'll at least be given the proper knowledge so you won't be taken advantage of. Okay boss-san. Until next week then, I love you, Naruto. Your indisposed godfather sends his love. Goodbye. Love you, too. Bye. Naruto sighed with relief. His godmother was a very stern and persuasive woman, but her heart was in the right place. After spending a few moments thinking about it, Naruto decided to change up the idea he had planned for the date. Picking up the phone, he began dialing the number. Hello, Minerva, it's Naruto. I hope you don't mind, but I decided on an alternate idea for our second date. How do you feel about the beach? The streets of Acme Acres buzzed with excitement as the grand masquerade ball approached. An event whispered about in every corner of the city, from the bustling downtown to the quiet, leafy suburbs. Minerva Mink, known throughout the land for her unparalleled beauty and wit, owned herself before her full-length mirror, her reflection casting back an image of anticipation mixed with a subtle hint of vulnerability. Tonight was different. Tonight, she sought something more profound than the adulation her beauty so often attracted, a genuine connection that saw beyond the surface, to the soul that yearned for understanding and companionship. The outing that she experienced with Naruto had sparked something of an interest in her. And while the blonde spoke a good game, she hadn't made her way through life by being foolish. She chose her mask carefully, a delicate piece de tea veiled her features while leaving her expressive eyes unveiled, the windows to her true self. As she made her way to the grand hall, the excitement in the air was palpable, a tangible buzz that seemed to vibrate through the very foundations of Acme Acres. The grand hall itself was a marvel, its towering doors thrown open to welcome guests from all walks of life, each hidden behind their chosen masks, identities concealed, and spirits bared. Upon entering, Minerva felt the shift, a transition from the mundane to the magical, as if stepping into another world where anything was possible. The hall was alive with the sound of a string quartet, their melodies weaving through the air like threads of silver, binding the guests together in a shared moment of enchantment. Amidst the sea of masked faces, one figure stood apart, a man of simple elegance, his mask unadorned yet captivating, hinting at a depth that piqued Minerva's curiosity. She approached, her heart aflutter, yet steadied by a sense of purpose. Good evening, she greeted, her voice a blend of confidence and curiosity, the timbre soft yet clear. The man turned, his eyes meeting hers through the slits of his mask. "Good evening," he replied, his voice warm, resonating with a kindness that felt both rare and familiar. "I will be going by alias. You can call me Milo." "Minerva," she introduced herself, feeling a surge of some things she couldn't quite name. She felt a sense of something akin to hope, perhaps, that this encounter might unfold into something meaningful. Their conversation began tentatively, small talk that danced around the edges of the mundane. But it wasn't long before it delved deeper, into realms of thought and feeling seldom explored in such settings. They spoke of art, not just as form and function but as an expression of the soul. Of dreams, not as fleeting shadows but as beacons guiding their paths. Of the stars above, not just as celestial bodies but as symbols of hope and wonder in the vast tapestry of the night. As they conversed, Minerva found herself drawn in by Milo's sincerity, his genuine interest in her thoughts and feelings, his ability to listen, a rarity in her world of fleeting glances and superficial flattery. Here, in this moment, she felt seen, truly seen, not just as Minerva Mink, the object of desire, but as Minerva, a soul navigating the complexities of life. "You have a beautiful mind, Minerva," Milo remarked, his words sincere, free from the artifice so common in their world. "It's refreshing to meet someone who looks beyond the surface, who seeks the essence." Minerva's heart skipped a beat. "And you, Milo, have shown me that there's still genuine people out there worth forming a connection with." Their dialogue flowed like a river, meandering through landscapes of thought and emotion, uncovering shared truths and hidden fears. As they spoke, the world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the music of their conversation, a melody of words and whisper that spoke of possibilities yet to be explored. In Milo, Minerva found a kindred spirit, someone who saw her for who she truly was, a woman of depth and substance, yearning for a connection that transcended the physical, reaching into the realms of the heart and soul. And in Minerva, Milo found a mirror to his own aspirations and dreams, a reminder that beauty, in its truest form, was not just seen but felt. As the evening progressed, the string quartet's melody gave way to a slower, more intimate piece, inviting the masked attendees to the dance floor. The grand hall, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, each flicker of flame casting shadows that danced along the walls. Minerva and Milo found themselves drawn to the dance floor, a silent agreement passing between them as they joined the other couples in a slow, graceful waltz. With Milo's hand gently resting on her waist and hers on his shoulder, they moved as if in a dream, their steps perfectly synchronized with the music and with each other. The world around them seemed to fade, leaving only the two of them, moving through space and time in perfect harmony. Minerva felt a sense of liberation, of being freed from the expectations and judgments that so often accompanied her every step. Here, in Milo's arms, she was just Minerva, and that was enough. "You dance beautifully," Milo whispered, his breath warm against her ear. Minerva smiled, her heart fluttering at the compliment. "So do you," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's as if you know exactly where I'm going to be." "It's easy when you're leading with your heart," Milo said, his gaze locked with hers, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Their dance continued, the world around them a blur of colors and sounds, but to Minerva and Milo, nothing else existed but the moment they were sharing. It was a connection that transcended words, a silent conversation between two souls who had found each other amidst the masquerade. As the music slowly faded, the pair reluctantly parted, the spell of the dance broken by the applause of the other guests. They stepped off the dance floor, their hands still clasped together, reluctant to break the physical connection that had mirrored the emotional one they'd just discovered. "I haven't felt this alive in a long time," Minerva confessed, her eyes searching Milo's. "Tonight has been full of surprises." Milo squeezed her hand gently. "Life is full of surprises, Minerva. The trick is to be open to them, to embrace them when they come, no matter how unexpected." They found a secluded spot by a large, ornate window, the moon casting a silver glow over the garden outside. It was a scene from a fairy tale, the kind Minerva had always secretly hoped for but never truly believed could be her own. As they stood together, watching the night unfold before them, Milo turned to Minerva, a serious look on his face. "I know tonight is just one night, and who knows what tomorrow may bring. But I want you to know, Minerva, that I see you. Not the image the world has of you, but the real you. And I like what I see." Tears welled up in Minerva's eyes, tears of joy and relief. For so long, she had worn a mask, not just to the ball, but in her life, hiding her true self from the world. But with Milo, she felt she could finally remove it, to be seen and to be loved for who she truly was. "Thank you, Milo," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "For tonight, for seeing me, for everything." They stood there, in the moonlight, two souls bared to each other. Surrounded by the beauty of the night and the promise of a future where masks were no longer needed. It was a beginning, fragile and new, but full of hope. And as the clock struck midnight, signaling the end of the masquerade, Minerva Mink and Milo knew that, regardless of what lay ahead, they had found something precious, a connection that would endure. In the aftermath of their dance, as the chimes of midnight echoed through the grand hall, signaling the close of the masquerade, Minerva and Milo lingered by the window, reluctant to part ways. The magic of the evening hung heavily around them, a tangible reminder of the connection they had forged. "The night is ending, but I find myself wishing it wouldn't," Minerva confessed, her gaze lingering on Milo's face, seeking to memorize his features before the spell of the evening broke. Milo's smile was tender, a reflection of the emotions swirling within him. "All beautiful things have an end, Minerva. But the end of one thing can be the beginning of another. Tonight doesn't have to be the end for us." A hopeful light sparked in Minerva's eyes at his words. "Do you really believe that?" she asked, her voice a mix of hope and vulnerability. "With all my heart," Milo affirmed, his hand reaching up to gently caress her cheek. "I believe some connections are too strong to be confined to a single night. What we've discovered here, it's rare and precious. I'd like to see where it leads, if you're willing." The sincerity in Milo's eyes, the warmth of his touch, all served to reassure Minerva that the feelings she harbored were not one-sided. The mask she had worn all evening, and indeed for much of her life, felt unnecessary now. Here, in the glow of the moonlight, with Milo, she could be her true self. "I'm willing," she whispered, her decision made. The fear of the unknown, of opening her heart to someone, was overshadowed by the promise of what could be, a future where she was loved and accepted for who she was. Not just for the beauty she presented to the world. As they stepped away from the window, rejoining the last of the guests who were making their way out of the grand hall, Minerva felt a sense of peace. The masquerade had brought her more than she could have ever hoped for. Not a fleeting admiration, but a genuine connection with someone who saw beyond the surface. Outside, the night air was crisp, a stark contrast to the warmth of the ballroom they had just left. Milo offered Minerva his arm, a gentlemanly gesture that she accepted with a smile. Together, they walked down the steps of the grand hall, their steps synchronized. Their hearts aligned. The streets of Acme Acres were quiet, the revelry of the ball a distant echo behind them. They walked in comfortable silence, each lost eye, and their thoughts about the evening and the promise of what was to come. Under the silver embrace of the moon, their walk had led them to the serene bridge overlooking Acme Acres' twinkling landscape. The night air, crisp and cool, whispered secrets only the stars were privy to. Minerva and Milo, wrapped in the intimacy of shared confidences and silent promises, paused to admire the view, their closeness both a comfort and a thrill. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Minerva remarked, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the night sky met the city's outline. "I always find peace looking at the night sky. A reminder of how vast and mysterious the world is." Milo nodded, his eyes not on the sky but on her. "It is," he agreed softly. "But not as beautiful as the journey I've found myself on tonight. With you, Minerva." The sincerity in his voice compelled her to face him, her heart beating a tad faster. "Milo, tonight has been unexpected. I've never connected with someone so quickly, so deeply. It's both exciting and a little scary." He reached for her hands, holding them gently between his. "I feel the same," Milo confessed. "There's something I need to show you, something important." Curiosity piqued, Minerva watched as Milo reached up to his mask, the simple yet elegant disguise he'd worn throughout the evening. As the mask came away, revealing his face in the moonlight, Minerva's breath caught in her throat. Milo was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, a revelation that sent a shockwave of surprise and realization through her. Naruto, with his bright blue eyes and sincere smile, stood before her. Unmasked in every sense of the word. "Naruto!" Minerva exclaimed, her voice a mixture of astonishment and disbelief. "But how? Why?" Naruto's smile widened, a hint of nervousness in his eyes. "I wanted tonight to be about genuine connections, about seeing and being seen for who we truly are, beyond the fame or the expectations. I thought Milo could offer that, a chance for us to meet without preconceptions. I wanted us to be able to be open with each other and bare our truths and to show you that my interest of you is completely genuine." Minerva, still processing the revelation, felt a whirlwind of emotions. Surprised, certainly, but more overwhelmingly, touched by the lengths to which Naruto had gone to reveal the truth of their hearts. "You could have told me from the start," she said. Though without any real heat. A smile tugged at her lips, understanding dawning. "But then, we might not have had this night, this adventure." "You were right, it was about more than just seeing, it was about understanding and connecting." Naruto looked relieved, his gaze earnest. "I was worried, for a moment, that you'd be upset. But I hoped, more than anything, that you'd understand why I did it." Minerva stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "I do," she affirmed, her voice soft but sure. "And you're right, tonight was special. It was real. The beauty of this connect. Ion without Precious was something truly beautiful. Thank you, Naruto, for this unforgettable night." Their eyes locked, a silent communication passing between them that no words could adequately convey. Then, in a moment as natural as the night turning into day, Minerva leaned in, and their lips met in a kiss that sealed their newfound understanding and connection. It was a kiss that spoke of promises, of hope, and of a future where masks were no longer needed. Hand in hand, they continued their walk, no longer as Minerva and Milo, or Minerva and Naruto, but simply as two people who had found a rare and beautiful connection amid the masquerade of life. The end.